I don't know about you, but I was personally deeply moved by this evening's student performance. The word of the night needs to be melanated. Yeah, I don't know if you are familiar with that word, the word melanated. The boys rapped these words. 4th grade black boys about to take flight. We so melanated, we so melanated. This black skin that I'm in, it will be celebrated. And if you look into our eyes, you will see we dedicated. We so dedicated. We so dedicated. Sweet words. Very, very little in this life gives me more joy than to see this small mass of predominantly melanated humanity that walks these halls and throws basketballs in this gym begin to grow their wings and take flight. In his monologue, Miles said this, "I'm a 6th grader and I'm a climber. I have goals and dreams. I've got to do my very best, all while I'm trying to figure out just who I am and what I am meant to be. My life is a journey full of ups, downs, twists, turns, and everything in between. Sometimes the journey ahead seems impossible, like a mountain that is so high you can't see the top. Sometimes I wish I could see through their eyes and understand what it looks and feels like to be a 10-year-old black boy in our city. As elated and motivated and inspired as I am by these young students, I am equally mortified by the systems and structures in our community that almost guarantee that most will never take flight or climb their mountain. Last week on October 30th, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel ran an article with this headline: Wisconsin again has the worst gap in academic achievement between its black and white students. The data comes from a national test taken by students in all 50 states. Students are placed in one of 4 categories: advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic. The article goes on to say, Wisconsin has the highest percentage of black students exhibiting skills considered below a basic level. It also says in Wisconsin, black students in 4th and 8th grade posted the lowest average scores in reading nationwide. We dug deeper into the data provided by the state from the 2019 Forward exam to learn more. Wisconsin's Forward exam, fortunately, is actually a rigorous test. 41% of students statewide scored proficient or advanced, which indicates that they're ready and prepared to make it to and through college. At St. Marcus, 30% of our students scored proficient in reading and 34% in math. These scores do not seem high until you understand our local context. We learned that there are 2 schools in our aldermanic district, Andrew Douglas and Keefe Avenue, with a 0% reading proficiency rate. We learned that our 4 closest neighboring schools, all of them within 4 blocks of where you sit tonight, where the reading proficiency rates are as follows: 7%, 6%, 4%, and 2%. Within our 2 closest schools, Carver Academy and O.W. Holmes, there are approximately the same number of students as there are guests in this room tonight. Please take a moment to note the color of the little round sticker on your table number in the middle of your table. If that sticker is blue, Could you look at the folks at your table and please stand? Nobody. There are 0 students in those 2 schools who scored advanced. If it is green, could you please stand? Among the 412 students that tested, there were only 12 who scored proficient. Thank you. And if it is red, could you please stand? This is not basic. This represents the 307 or 75% of students who are below basic or functionally illiterate. Please take a seat. Is it possible to be an educated adult in our community and not feel a deep, deep sense of shame and feel this burden to do something? On a brighter note, on Tuesday of this next week, the state of Wisconsin will publicly release this year's school report cards, which use the state's forward exam to evaluate every school in the state. I'm thankful to be able to share with you that for the first time in our history, based on our results, we expect to receive a significantly exceeds expectations 5-star rating. Thank you. Thank you. Last school year, this rating was earned by just 18 of the 273 schools in the city. This recognition endorses what we already knew, that the community that makes up St. Marcus School and Church, by God's grace, is moving mountains in the lives of kids and families. For the sake of time, I'm only going to share with you 3 critical ingredients of our success. And if you've already visited, you know what they are because you've seen it. And if you haven't, I want to encourage you to visit, because the first step in really engaging is to see it, and then to spread the word and invite others to join the army of people who are doing something. The first critical ingredient are our resources. You may know that because we're a private voucher school, we receive significantly less in state funding from the public schools. In fact, we receive an average of $8,000 per child, which is lower than many, many of the districts in Wisconsin. In order to provide a true quality education, there's a gap between what we get from the state at $8,000 and what we spend. And that gap is $2,500 for every student. You equip us to provide our students with what is common and expected in wealthier neighborhoods throughout our state. Basic things like music, art, rigorous science, special education services, athletics, alumni support, and travel programs like Discover America. Without your support, without your generosity, without the sacrifices that you make, we could not provide the level of education that we provide to our students. The second reason why we're successful is because of what we teach. We unapologetically start with the gospel. The staff of St. Marcus love the Lord, and driven by our faith, we constantly strive to anchor our students in the truths of the Christian gospel, so they understand that they are uniquely made, redeemed, purposeful children of God. We relentlessly teach our students the 5 competencies for success: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. You know, when I arrived 17 years ago, I was old school. I was raised in a British boarding school. And I thought the way that it worked is that when a student misbehaves and they come to my office, I punish them, and then they'd leave, and then they'd do better because they were punished. And since I've returned to serving as the 7th and 8th grade dean, my colleagues have taught me that does not work. And what works in the lives of students is when they make a mistake, you breathe life into them, you remind them who they are as children of God, and then you equip them with the competencies of success that enable them not to make the same mistake the next time. The third and most important ingredient, perhaps, is who teaches our students. And God has blessed us with the most unbelievable staff, including a reduction in staff turnover. They are exceptional because they live and breathe our core values of Christ first, biblical discipleship, sacrificial love, and radical expectations. In short, they love the Lord, they love their kids, and they are rigorously demanding. I'd like to take a moment to recognize all of the staff members, most of whom are volunteering, who are here tonight. Could you please stand and be recognized? I'd like to honor and recognize Erin Johnson and April Richter. They're our two principals. They are our two principals at both campuses. They have over 25 years combined experience at St. Marcus. They've both been principals for 4 years. They are exceptional leaders. April at the back and Erin in the middle. Could you please stand? Thank you. Our directors, Christy, Maria, Lisa, Rebecca, Rachel, and Garrett, miraculously, all of them in year 4 of service as directors. Could you guys please stand? Thank you for leading. And finally, at our honoree table, and it's so important that I share this with you because exceptional teachers who stay despite the challenges are critical to any school's success. I'm going to read the names of 7 individuals and their accomplishments. Please hold your applause. Teachers, I'd ask you to please stand and remain standing until I've mentioned all 7. Peter Langbartels, exemplary instructor in middle school science. Peter got the highest science scores in St. Marcus history with a 40% proficiency rate and 89% of students scoring basic or higher. Latoya Young, exemplary instructor in 5th grade ELA. Latoya beat the state average with a 49% proficiency rate in English language arts, and 67% of her students grew at least a year. Alex Tyler, exemplary instructor in English language arts, whose students saw a 17 percentage point increase in proficiency, and 75% of her students grew 1 year or more. Jada Harris, exemplary instructor in 8th grade math, 90% of her students, about 75 of them, grew a year or more. Students achieved a 56% proficiency in math, which beat the statewide average in almost every district in southeastern Wisconsin. And finally, before you cheer for them, our academic leaders in the middle school. Our director, Garrett Mandeville, at the back, our academic dean of mathematics, Kurt Stilo, and our academic dean of English language arts, Andrew Becker. These are exceptional educators. All of these amazing adults, supported by you, equips students to move mountains in their own lives. In closing, I'd like you to meet two young men who, because of their parents and these teachers, are doing amazing things. Please join me in welcoming to the stage 8th graders Daniel Allen and DeAndre Parks. DeAndre Parks arrived at St. Marcus in K4. In his early years, DeAndre struggled mightily with, shall I say, anger issues. His behavior log is a long and interesting read. And this DeAndre is only 3rd grade. It's longer than my speech. With your mother's and your permission, I share with you from November 26, 2014. We go back down the mountain 5 years. Huge temper tantrum thrown when Mr. Lopez just gave him a warning. He started kicking and screaming at the top of his lungs. He was removed from class and taken to my office. He continued to bang his body up against the walls, kicking the door and crying loudly. The dean writes, I went to get him and he started... Really, DeAndre? He started yelling, I hate my mama and this school. I'm gonna bust everyone's head and everyone is stupid. Those of you who knew DeAndre, remember the old DeAndre. Not surprisingly, at the end of his 4th grade year, a year later, DeAndre tested at the basic level in 3 of the 4 subjects tested. Over the past few years, DeAndre started to make progress. His mother shares with me that where medication and in-treatment services failed, faith, family, and an intense partnership between school and home started to bear fruit. DeAndre's grandmother, Miss Patsy, played a critical role. Last year, his 7th grade year, DeAndre scored proficient in reading and math. More importantly, the beginning of this year, his 8th grade year, DeAndre was selected by his peers and by the staff as one of 11 students to wear the coveted gold and blue student leadership tie. My favorite DeAndre story happened this year during roll call in this gym, where DeAndre was lined up against that wall with his class. And as usual, DeAndre had 0 demerits on the week. And he had a classmate who had 6 demerits who had showed up without his blazer, for which he was going to earn 2 more demerits and his 2nd detention. DeAndre Parks, the man of strong faith, took off his blazer and gave it to his friend and assumed those demerits. DeAndre, you've not only grown through some incredible mountains in your life, you have become a man, and a man of faith, of character, and of strong intellect. DeAndre's mom is in the room tonight. Denisha, where are you? Could you please stand? Somebody point. There she is at the back. Denisha and DeAndre. Daniel Allen arrived at St. Marcus in 2nd grade, having attended Montessori schools in his early education. As you may know, our educational model is radically different from the Montessori model. As such, when he arrived, Daniel struggled academically. Tragedy struck Daniel and his mother in 4th grade when Daniel's father died suddenly and unexpectedly. Not surprisingly, Daniel continued to struggle. Through his mother's devotion, support from his teachers, in his 5th grade year, Daniel started to gain traction. But by the end of that year, Daniel scored below basic in just the 18th percentile on the Math Forward exam. At the end of his 6th grade year, Daniel made more progress and scored in the 55th percentile. And finally, this year, in April, Daniel scored in the 81st percentile. Daniel is now almost advanced in math and solidly proficient in reading. Last quarter, Daniel was the only male student in the entire middle school who received 0 demerits. No tardies, no uniform violations, no untimely bathroom breaks, no disrespect, no talking in class, nothing but a rigorous focus on his future and his education. Daniel now serves as a restorative justice leader, helping younger students to follow the same path. Daniel credits his mom, his growing faith, and his teachers with his stunning success. Daniel's mother is in the room tonight, Miss Allen. Let's give it up for both of these students and their parents. Miss Allen is over here in blue. What an honor. What an honor to be supported by you to work alongside these friends, to equip students like Daniel and DeAndre to live as disciples of Christ and to move mountains in their lives. The dreams that we have for our children, the dreams that you have for your children, are the very same dreams that parents in this city have for their own children. Tonight is about digging deep. It's about giving generously. It's about raising up an army of people radically committed to moving mountains by giving kids hope, purpose, and a future. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your generosity, and God bless you.